How's he pronounce it?
Nobody knows them, which is the point. You've made my point. How do I coordinate this? A film actor, singer, dancer, director, and stage personality, Kurt Gerron seemed to be all over Berlin and the silver screen in Germany and indeed all over the world. And from 1920 until the war. In those 18 years, he was involved in at least 94 films. It would have been difficult to erase his presence from the history of theater and motion pictures. And you probably know a lot about him and you don't know it. Kurt Gerron never wanted to disappear. In 1929, at the height of his popularity, he complained to a reviewer that he had not been cited in a discussion of the play that he was in. And he writes, "In your entire review, my name is not mentioned once. Is that supposed to mean I was not even there? 4 weeks of most concentrated rehearsals and not even been there? Was that your intention? If I understood you right, I would be desolate." I would be embarrassed to do that. Only in his position of stardom could he have admitted this weakness, this need for attention, because only in his position could the ironic humor be appreciated. Who could think he really needed recognition in 1929? But that attention was deserved and needed terribly then. And now it is needed even more because so much of his work was carefully erased, and the meager reputation that is left is based on the very little evidence that has been gathered. This talk will serve as a short introduction to what is missing.
So that he won't be disappeared.
At least. Let me begin with the least documented of his works, Gerron's political presence in Germany during the rise of Nazi power. His protests were strong and public, and his parodies well known. 2 examples. In 1924, he performed in a mock operetta called Quo Vadis. It was an early satire on Nazism, in which Hitler was presented as Nero, and Hitler's beer hall putsch of the previous year was directly attacked, played for numerous times until 1926. A later example is Sylvester, 1932, Ende schlecht, alles schlecht. All's bad that ends bad, with Marlene Dietrich. Performance on the eve of disaster that seems to indicate that Gerron was believed, that Gerron was one who believed that sharp humor can conquer reality. It was, if you listen to it, it's free on Amazon, I think. You hear all the, in German, you hear all the 2 hours of laughter about Hitler. In fact, Gerron was so popular in almost every area of entertainment. His recorded songs sang of everyday life in Berlin, from a visit to the doctor to the difficulty of crossing streets. He was all over the papers. He was in every party. He even did a film with Germany's boxing pride, Max Schmeling, playing the manager and carrying the voice in the record they did together. And yet, despite his ubiquitous presence, there seemed to be large gaps both in his film presence and his actual biography. Even a recent book on Gerron by Charles Lewinsky in German is admittedly more creative nonfiction than fact because he has to fill the many gaps with plausible stories. 2 films were made about Gerron in recent years. Kurt Gerron's Carousel in 1999 that lauds his contribution to music, and Prisoner of Paradise, 2002, that decries his contribution to Nazi propaganda by making a film in Theresienstadt. Hitler creates a town for the Jews in 1944. attributing this film to vanity, the vanity of Gerron and his subservience. Since then, Gerron seems to have faded in interest since these films, despite his centrality to the Jewish experience and to German film before and during World War II. This contemporary absence from consciousness seems to be in line with the Nazi attempts during the war to eliminate any memory of him or his contribution to German culture. The erasure of Gerron's heroism began from the period of the First World War, in which his military decorations after being wounded and his subsequent army involvement as a medical doctor were not taken into consideration by the Nazis in World War II. He himself tried to forget these experiences and abandoned the pursuit of medicine, turning to the theater in the belief that his curative influence could be greater with humor and insight. He became part of the increasingly popular cabaret scene and began to appear in films soon after. His big break into popular culture appeared in 1928. He premiered in the Threepenny Opera, opening the play by singing a song you all know. You know it, right? And we talk about this for half an hour afterwards if we have time. But we don't. But this is an introductory song to the concept of the anti-hero in modern society, describing the success of the murderer, rapist, and sadist that was to become the kind of ideal in the society there. The song also warned of the coming reversal of values in German society in which power overcomes culture and its value. Not only did Gerron play this role hundreds of times, but this song catapulted him to international fame and remained so popular during his lifetime, he was reported filmed singing Mac the Knife for Nazi soldiers just before his transportation to Auschwitz. Why was this song allowed to remain in popular German culture in the years to follow? I suspect the evil murder and rape of which Gerron sings was attributed to the singer and not the anti-hero Brecht revived. Soon after the Threepenny Opera, he participated in a film of Leni Riefenstahl entitled The White Hell of Pitzpalu, 1929, appealing to the German character about the heroic rescue of a young brave Aryan couple from an avalanche. Although he was initially credited in the film and is said to have had a significant role, his part was cut out and his role only partially reconstructed somewhere in 1996. This is a screenshot for 3 seconds of his appearance there, and it's very clear that he's anticipating the arrival of the rescue couple. There are many more scenes of people in church praying, and there's only one scene, and it's clear that this is not the whole film, that he has been cut out, and they just didn't get that part, or they just reconstructed that part. There are scenes of women praying in church. They seem to fit in with the concept that Leni Riefenstahl was trying to promote of the superiority of this particular people, and there's a threat there of Gerron's presence to the film. This kind of erasure of Gerron is common. People on Sunday, oops, I'm going to leave that one, written by Billy Wilder, is in 1930. Is about an ordinary weekend in Berlin. Gerron is listed as having a brief appearance in this film without actors. About 20% of this film was cut, and 10% was later partially reconstructed. But I've seen the film many times, I can't find Gerron. He's not in it. He's listed as the sixth character. Yet Let's leave that one. The numerous references in the film to celebrities and people on Sunday suggest that Gerron's role was part of the contrast of the young people who carry the plot.
I'm going to be a star. In this film, they have husband and wife, they tear down each other's pin-ups of celebrities, and they have a little fight. They have the fight because they wanted to go to a Greta Garbo movie, but when she put her hat on, she refused to wear her brim down like Greta Garbo. So, the whole film is about the contrast between normal people, and stars like Kurt Gerron, and he's not there. And you can see where it's missing. The big break. The reason you know him is because of the Blue Angel with Marlene Dietrich. This is a film he couldn't have been cut out of because it was already in English by the time, it had already been dubbed in English with him dubbing it in 1928 before it was too far away from Germany already and too big a hit to be erased. Gerron up here plays the magician, Clifford the magician, who the club owner, who instigates and takes great pleasure in Marlene Dietrich's seduction and destruction of an innocent and proper German professor. This film has been released and acclaimed in German and English dubbing by the original actors long before the Nazis came to power. Also, in The Blue Angel, Gerron's role is suitable to the image of a decadent Jew who helps to degrade the dignified German professor, along with that decadent feminist sex queen, Marlene Dietrich. He's usually omitted from the advertisements, but this one you can see him on the balcony. And he's amazing throughout the film. If you haven't seen it, this is amazing. There's also Diary of a Lost Girl that came out the year after, in which his role is significant, but he's never credited. In this film, this is also one that was cut and partially restored. In this film, his role, you can see him all over, kissing this poor girl. This proper young girl is raped, cast out from her family, escapes reform school, is seduced into prostitution, and Gerron, as one of her customers, Dr. Vitalis, initially seems to be intent on saving her. And he's like the hope in the film. And then he leaves her after he sees her encounter with her former rapist and understands she's a good girl who won't fall for his sham reform. And he says to her, "You are now a lost girl, just as we all are lost." And he's wrong because she's redeemed and she becomes here. She marries well and takes over the orphanage, the reform school that she was at, and makes everything better. I think he survives here because he reinforces the image of the merciless Jew, or maybe because of the restoration made a few years later. I can't be sure about what was restored. In insipid comedies such as Three in a Gas Station, I would play this for you. Do I have time? If you ask me later, I'll play it for you. He plays the Jewish lawyer, who is, of course, a little crooked, as all of his roles are. And he speaks in Yiddish. He says, these guys are the sugar, the Musketieren.
Hier Büro Dr. Kalmus?
Ja, hier ist Helding. Kann ich Herrn Dr. Kalmus sprechen?
Einen Augenblick bitte.
Bitte.
Der Doktor?
Ja, hier ist Dr. Krammerschwester. Ja, hier ist Helding. Die drei beschobenen Musketiere sind zurückgekommen.
It works so beautifully in the film, but I think that it's again a restoration. He also sings and dances there. This is one of many films created by UFA, the Universal Film Action Gesellschaft, the major company producing and distributing motion pictures, over 30 of which contain Gerron in some capacity. This company was purchased by the future minister of the Economy, Agriculture, and Nutrition in Hitler's cabinet, who transferred it to the Nazi Party, and that was exactly when the Jews were fired. Gerron's last film for UFA, before he was fired, exhibits his persistent optimism. Whoops. Es wird schon wieder besser. It's already getting better. He directed this. He became a director of this in these years, and remained a director after that. But he was ousted from the UFA mid-scene in April 1st, 1933. He left for Paris, foregoing his immigration to the United States. It said that even though Peter Lorre, Marlene Dietrich, Joseph Van Sternberg, and his other friends who had made it to Hollywood worked to help him come, he was waiting for a first-class ticket. However, it may be more likely that Gerron believed in the Nazi madness would pass and he'd be able to return to Berlin and his former life in the near future. As the only child, he not only had his wife Olga, but also his aged parents as well to support and protect, and he thought he could do it. He was also not alone when he went to Paris. Peter Lorre was with him, Kurt Boys. All these guys appeared later in American films as stars. They left Paris to join their friends in Hollywood, and if you've watched Casablanca, they're all there. Who hasn't watched Casablanca? So, all the guys who left, all the friends of Gerron who left, were in Casablanca, except for Marlene Dietrich, which he had other things to do. In Paris, Gerron made entertaining Parisian films, such as these two. Then when the war broke out and escaping was no longer possible, went to Vienna, made another romance film, not this one. And then he had to move to Holland, where he began to make, this is the first mystery film ever made in Holland, and probably in Europe, light mystery, like Agatha Christie type. And then he made others, like this one, Marino Glitzen's Youth, which is considered a classic of Dutch films. And a fairy tale called Three Wishes, which doesn't exist in Dutch anymore, but in its Italian form, which makes sense because he made it in Italy for a Dutch company, back to Holland. That's when he started getting into, he thought he could make it. Here he is filmed at the eve of the opening of the Three Wishes, wearing a star, as you can see, that isn't required. It wasn't required at the time in Holland. He was doing it for a purpose. This is his wife. And it looks to me like jewelry. It looks a little glitzy. But I haven't seen the original film, the original picture yet. Last film, he did the Dutch version of Disney's Snow White and played the parts. He directed it and played the parts of Bashful, Sleepy, and the Magic Mirror. I'm telling you all this because it's very clear that this escapist direction makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that in a world of chaos, what do? You have fun. That's all you can do. You fool around. But it was impossible to escape. He was commissioned by the city of Amsterdam and KLM to make a film about Schiphol Airport, which had been front news in the newspaper. But as soon as the newspaper realized what it had printed, they began to campaign against foreigners in the movie business, and he went back to theater, in charge of the Jewish theater, and his film career ended at that point. On the other hand, he appears in The Eternal Jew.
It was no different in the movies. The Jewish film director Richard Oswald, the comedian Gerron. Jews consider portrayal of disreputable and repellent particularly fertile ground for comic effect.
So while his career was ending, it was being used by the Nazis already in 1940. In 1943, he was sent to Westerbork with others, and from there to Theresienstadt. Both places he opened cabarets, and in Theresienstadt he had a cabaret with Martin Robin. They talk about leaving us with our feeling of illusion, just a bit of illusion. But his greatest effort, Evolution, is the film he was forced to direct, a film referred to as Hitler Builds the City for the Jews.
So he did the propaganda film in
He did that, yes. He did the propaganda film in Theresienstadt. He was forbidden to speak directly. The film crew took orders from the Nazi guards, and Gerron worked scene by scene to make the camp appear a pleasant and cultured place. Nevertheless, despite the fact that he was demoted to assistant director halfway through, he manages to reveal hints of suffering in the way he highlights details. And there are a couple studies about this, about how the film has to show Theresienstadt in the way the Nazis wanted, but there are hints here and there that it isn't. These subtle hints of his awareness of human suffering appear in the film, but he did not live to see it, because when the shooting of the film was over, he and his wife were transported to Auschwitz, quickly gassed the day of their arrival on the 28th of October, and then they closed the gas chambers. Gerron was only one of the many Jewish artists who tried to flee and remained in the country to be silenced in one way or another. Because of the prevalence of Jewish figures in the world of entertainment, it is not surprising that so many believed it was a temporary situation and could be waited out, but only those who escaped lived on to become household names until today. Gerron's end is like the last word of the song he made famous, Knack the Knife. There are some who live in darkness, and the others are in light. And you see the ones in brightness, those in darkness, struck from sight. There are tragedies of the Holocaust we know only by the absence of documentation. What is under the bulldozed fields, what the crematoriums were at work looked like, what happened to the missing crowds. And Kurt Gerron would give a tiny speck of the great picture that's still dark. Thank you.